I'm Patricia Greenberg, and welcome to It's Okay to Be Old, a show about all things aging well. My guest today is Deanna Scaldaferri, and she is a narcissistic abuse recovery expert who helps people break free and rediscover their light. Her passion is helping people grow on their life's journey and spiritual path to find healing, balance, health, love, and happiness. She is devoted to educating the next generation about narcissistic abuse patterns so they can avoid the decades of pain that she experienced. She's a holistic healer, a speaker, and a survivor advocate. Welcome, Deanna.
Thank you so much, Patricia. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
This is just a topic that is very timely because still in this day and age, people are being told, they're imagining it, they're overreacting, they're emotional, they're hysterical. I mean, we're still unfortunately experiencing this. Narcissistic behavior is labeling someone a narcissist. Now, that's being thrown around a lot these days. And today,
Yes.
I really want to delve into this and really understand what a narcissist is and how that disorder is harmful to oneself and others. So that's kind of the big picture. But first, tell us your story.
Oh, wow. Yes, we have limited time, so I'll give you the highlights. But yeah, so basically in my life, actually from a very young age, Patricia, that's a perfect example. I was always told by many people I was too sensitive. I took things too personally. And when you grow up, you think it was in a very negative way, and it felt very negative. So in any situation like that, a child grows up and you think, well, this is bad. This is not good. I'm not supposed to show this. So then you hide it, you bury it, that kind of a thing. And then life happens and you magnetize towards people. I say at this point that I'm a recovering codependent, a recovering people pleaser, a recovering perfectionist, because those are things that in my childhood I watched my mom do. My dad did have narcissistic traits. So growing up, I thought that was normal. So it's natural that then I would gravitate to those kinds of relationships for friendships, in work, intimate, romantic relationships as well. So I have been in several narcissistic relationships, not knowing it throughout my life. One very long one, which was definitely the most impactful. And really, it wasn't until there were several traumatic events in my life as an adult that brought me to seek psychotherapy. I had never gone to therapy before in my life. And I can, I'm an open book and I can share. I actually lost my parents pretty traumatically in 2017. And that led me, very intense grief and depression that I was feeling led me to seek help, professional help. And in that, Patricia, it opened up an entire, can of worms that I was not even ever anticipating. I kept saying to the therapist, I'm here for the grief that I'm feeling for my parents. And she just kept going to the relationships that I was in and pointing out the dysfunction and all of the unhealthy behaviors. So it was a year plus of really I always say it was like putting pieces in a puzzle. When you start putting pieces in a puzzle, you see the big picture much clearer. And I was putting together the pieces of my life and what looked like my daily world that honestly, Patricia, for many, many years, so many things didn't feel right. It wasn't that I was completely oblivious. And this is where I speak now to the intuition and the soul. There were many times that things did not feel okay, but I didn't know what it was. And so what happens? You kind of keep the peace, sweep it under the carpet, and you keep going. Well, when years and years of that happens, at some point, the mountain is so big under the carpet and you can't hold any more in it. And even in my own body, like just repressed emotions, anger, resentment, all of that. So it was I learned at that point in my life, I learned so much about narcissism because I needed to know what I was up against. And I'm a big believer that knowledge is power. And whatever it is that you're dealing with in your life, you need to understand it first, right? So at this point, I feel like an expert because not only did I study and research it, but I've lived it personally. So I needed to know how to get out safely, how to heal. So I learned all of these things for myself and to help my children. And I thought that's what it was all about, Patricia. And then at some point, by trade, I'm a licensed massage and bodywork therapist, and I'm a Reiki energy healer master. But at some point, I realized I was being called higher. I was being called to help people specifically in these kinds of abusive and toxic relationships and helping them either get out, recover, heal. Because I'm not speaking from a textbook. Yes, I can speak all of the psychology and the science behind it. but I've lived it personally, and I'm modeling that, the healing of that to my children now. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much how it brought me to this space to be able to help people on a very deep level.
What is fascinating to me is that a narcissistic person, it's insidious. They're not necessarily hitting you, they're not
Oh,
necessarily
right.
depriving you of anything. I want to speak with you. I always say I partner with my guests in getting information out. It doesn't matter what you look like.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what your house looks like. It doesn't matter what's in your background. It is so deep. Like people look at someone else and say, "Oh my God, they have it made. They have a beautiful home. They have a gorgeous, house and beautiful children." You don't know what's going on inside there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so the appearance can often be so different than what's
Yes.
actually going on. That's why
Yes.
I really want to mention that. Uh,
Yes, and absolutely, Patricia. And that speaks to the fact of narcissism, that from the outside, right? It's well, they talk about the word you'll hear a lot about a narcissist is the mask that they wear.
okay.
It's
Mhm.
a mask. So what the outside world sees and what actually happens behind closed doors are two very, very different things. And so yes, you're absolutely right. And it's also very subtle. The abuse happens slowly. There's like a grooming process. So, and I speak to this a lot, Patricia, in saying that obviously when there's physical abuse, everyone knows that's wrong. That's
Right,
not okay.
right.
But when there's abuse on an emotional level, a verbal level, a psychological level, it can actually also encompass financial, sexual. There's many layers of abuse that encompass narcissistic abuse. Those things are much harder to show, to prove, to see, to recognize. And so that's why it's very tricky. And I'll say the last thing there about, the hidden piece of what happens behind closed doors. I use this phrase a lot because it encompasses a narcissist is truly a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Mhm.
That's the best way to put it.
You talk about the grooming process, and I've heard this over and over again. Is it a conscious effort on the narcissist's part, or is it just like, are they sitting there saying, 25 years old, I'm going to marry this girl.
Hmm.
I'm going to get her to fall in love with me. I'm going to ruin her life. Like, is this a conscious behavior?
It's a great question. And there's so many thoughts on that, whether it's like conscious or intentional or not. I believe it, and again, from my, understanding and from the psychological and science side, there's a hereditary and a genetic piece for sure.
Mhm.
It's the fact that there's several pieces of that. There's learned behavior. We all learn behaviors when we grow up in our household. So there's a learned behavior piece. So if a parent is a narcissist, typically some of the children will pick up those traits. But there's also hereditary in the sense of generationally, when these behaviors transcend generation, it actually does change the brain chemistry, which is fascinating. And that's again the science piece behind it. So the scary part is that it's not conscious. It's just natural to the person. So like you're in that example, I don't believe that the person is saying, okay, this is my master plan. I'm going to lure this person in and ruin their life. And like, I don't think it's that. I think it's so natural and in the subconscious that they've watched it, learned it, and it comes naturally. I do think though, and I will speak to that many instances though there are very intentional and conscious behaviors with the intention to hurt. And this is honestly, Patricia, it's a great point because it's something I struggled with very, very long in the longer relationship that I was in, because I was questioning exactly that piece. Is this person intentionally trying to hurt me? Is this person, because it felt that way. It felt that way when the things that were verbally that were so hurtful that were said, or I always felt like I was like a child being punished because I didn't agree with what he wanted. So then suddenly now he was punishing me. And it always felt very conscious and intentional. But then when I would ask him, like, why are you doing this? What is it? Oh, no, I don't know what you're talking about. So it always came off like, no, this isn't. But at the end of the day, and what I have found personally and through my research, a narcissist absolutely does know what they're doing. And it is on some level conscious because They're like a chameleon. They switch their behaviors depending on who the audience is. So if you think about that for a second, when you're in public and maybe you're at a party, right, they're in one persona, like the charismatic, life of the party. And then suddenly you go into, a side room and they're yelling at you and belittling you and this, right? So if you think about like that kind of example, then it absolutely is conscious. They know what is okay to show in public, but what is not okay, we're gonna hide behind closed doors. So that speaks to the intentionality.
So they're perpetrators. So somebody who grew up and they were the sensitive child and they're the one that took it. Narcissists, on almost a subconscious level, they know to go after someone who's weak. So
Yes.
if you early on in a relationship fight back, or you say, hey, this isn't working, and you leave, they'll do everything to not let you leave, right? That's
Yes.
another
Yes.
calculated effort, because then they can no longer have control over you.
Exactly. And
That's
that's a
probably where it gets very ugly.
it does. It absolutely does. Because exactly that. And this is where, again, now I do work in energy. So I do often think of things on an energetic level, but it speaks to that about the magnetism. Typically you find a narcissist with a codependent, a
Right.
narcissist with a people pleaser, a narcissist with an empath, someone who is sensitive. They're magnetic because exactly what you're saying. The narcissist knows, okay, I can control this person. This person is, they look at it as that you're a weaker person because your sensitivity makes you weak, right? Which we know is not the truth. But they also look at it that this person's a kind, loving, giving person. Because from that side, you think, well, I know this person isn't perfect. Nobody's perfect, but you think, well, maybe if I just do a little bit more, and maybe if I'm a little more loving, and maybe if I help in this way, the victim is constantly thinking, it's me. So if I just give more love and affection, then he'll change. And the narcissist knows that and they play off of that. So yes, it's absolutely that magnetic attraction. But at the end of the day, Patricia, what I find very interesting is that the narcissist looks down on their victim, the person they're with, as being weaker than them, that they're superior and the person is weaker. But at the end of the day, really, that person is the stronger one. And the narcissist knows it, which is why they need to keep them down.
Now, we often focus on men treating women badly. What about the men who are dealing with narcissistic wives, girlfriends,
Yeah.
mothers, sisters? I bring this up because there's in our society that's what we tend to think is men abusing women. And I know it kind of goes both ways.
Yes. Yes. And that's a
Do you
great
have
point
men
to
in your
highlight.
group? And do you have, yeah, you have, yeah.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
happy to hear that a man would come forward, because
Yes.
it's very
Yes.
humiliating,
I
right?
mean, the stats on it, yes. Okay. The majority is exactly that, the classic example of a man abusing a woman, but there are absolutely the reverse effect. I personally know people in that space personally. And yes, in the support group, there are men. When I was running the meetings in person, typically at least every month there was at least one or two men, and I always commended them and said to them, like, it takes a lot of courage. Because why? It takes a lot of courage for anyone to show up in that space, but specifically with the male being abused by a woman, that's really hard for a male to admit openly, publicly. In society that we live in, right? Men are supposed to be strong and just be macho and push anything down and not be vulnerable and not show emotion. So it takes, I think, even more courage for a man to step up and say, you know what, I'm being abused by my mother, by my wife. And that's really powerful when they do make that recognition. As a mother of three teenage boys, I am very, very conscious of the fact, of the mother father dynamic. I believe that sadly, if the narcissist is the mother, the wife, the female, it's really more damaging to children, in my opinion, because the mother is supposed to be the nurturer, the safe space, the unconditional love. So when you have a mother that's narcissistic, that hits very deeply. It does with a father as well, but there's something about that mother piece. And I do believe that as long as there's one parent that is the safe space, the emotional support, the unconditional love, then children, they have a chance. Because otherwise, if you grow up in that kind of household, it typically, what happens, you mentioned before about the sensitive one, the one, typically what happens is that either children repeat those behaviors in their adult relationships, or they go the opposite route and they completely, resist it, repel it, and they kind of really withdraw. We hear many times about the black sheep of a family.
Right.
Typically, those people are the sensitive ones that withdraw and isolate as a form of self-preservation.
They're hurting the most, as it, yeah, they
Yes.
don't have the survival skills that
Yes.
the other kids. Deanna, is there an appropriate and effective treatment for narcissistic disorder?
Mm,
We're healing ourselves as the
yes.
recipients of it. But
Yes.
I'm thinking more in lines that a narcissist has to come forward and say, I need help.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the problem. I wish the answer was yes to that. I don't know if Dr. Ramani, if you follow her, she is like the master and in this realm of narcissistic abuse. And you can go online and see any of her videos. And she speaks a lot to this, that we wish there was like a cure, but narcissism it's narcissistic personality disorder. It is a mental and personality disorder. So sadly, I mean, there's very, very low chance of a recovery. And the reason behind it is, in order, we know this ourselves, whether you're in psychotherapy or working on yourself trying to heal, you have to, number one, self reflect and be able to be introspective, right? To look within. A narcissist is not able to do that. They don't have the capability, the empathy to be able to do that. They also feel that they are perfect as they are. So if you believe you're perfect already, why would you need to work on yourself? Right. That's one. Two, if you're going to therapy, you're consciously trying to show up in better. Oh, I have this flaw, that this trait that I want, this behavior that I want to change. Again, a narcissist will never admit to that. They believe they are superior. They are perfect. There's nothing to work on. The problem is always everybody else. So if you're not even able to admit to yourself, I have something I want to work on, then the chance of any kind of change, sadly, is very, very small.
So this is a really deep hole for the narcissists, the victims, the mother, the father, the children.
Yes.
How do we help heal our children who've dealt with narcissistic or continue to deal with narcissistic parents?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm a living example of that. I have been for years and still continue. Modeling,
Okay.
modeling healthy behavior,
Okay.
modeling healthy relationships. This is something that has, I mean, so deep in my heart and my passion, Patricia, to help myself heal, but also help my children. And I don't even know. I mean, I have, my oldest is going to be 21, and I have twins that are going to be 18 very soon. So they're getting older and they're understanding a lot more. But I still don't even know how much they realize that I funneled basically my healing through them. Because what I realized, and I realized it very early, and I'm grateful for that. I have to heal myself, yes, for me, and so that I deserve a happy and healthy life. But so do my children, and they deserve a happier and healthier life than what they were used to. So I learned that in my healing, I was modeling how to manage emotions, right? No yelling and screaming. That's how we used to handle things. That's not how we handle it, right? Your needs are just as important as my needs. Having, real conversations, respecting everybody's needs, respecting boundaries, all of those things, there were things that I had to relearn and then model to my children. So the best way to help children and even siblings, family members, anyone close to you, is to figure out what helps you heal and model it to the people
Uh-huh.
around you. And if I may speak even further on that, Patricia, I'm a huge believer in mind, body, spirit healing with anything, specifically with narcissistic abuse, but with anything. You have to approach it from all angles. It is not independent of each other. So when I say in the healing, I'm talking neuroplasticity and rewiring and changing the brain, because when you've been with a narcissist, they have trained your brain to believe certain things, think things, adopt their toxic behaviors. That all has to be retrained. Then coming from the body perspective, someone's nervous system is on complete overload, deregulated, fight, flight, or freeze for years and years and years. That wreaks havoc on the body. That has to be, through somatic body work and energy release, has to be worked on to be healed. And then your physical body as well, of course, right? Exercise and getting, all the things that we normally need for self-care and taking care of your body, because you are so stripped. It's hard to even explain what you're left with. It's a trail of damage that a narcissist leaves. And depending on how long you've been in that relationship, really does speak to how long the recovery is. Because the abuse doesn't happen overnight, and neither does the recovery and the healing.
Yeah, so there's so many rabbit holes to go down with.
I know, I know.
It's very profound. Keep up this work, because what you're doing is
Yes.
beyond
Thank you.
the idea that those of us who are older adults now, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, have walked around their whole life with the damage of a narcissistic parent or a
Yes.
narcissistic spouse. So my question to you is, for myself and everyone, can you heal at any age?
Yes.
The work, I go around spewing that, but talking about, have you had experiences with older women and older men who had success with the treatment, the mind,
Yes.
body, and spirit treatment? Is
Abs-
talking about drugs. I'm not.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A more holistic approach.
Yes.
And yes, absolutely. Number one, I have said and preached for years, better late than never.
Right.
There is no age to say, oh, it's too late now for me. I can't heal. You can always heal no matter what your age. And yes, I have one woman that is coming to mind immediately from my support group. And she was in her 70s and she left a very toxic relationship, wasn't married, it was a boyfriend. And again, went through that whole process of like, do I just stay and like suck it up, basically, right? Live it out like I'm older. And she didn't. She fought. She left safely. And she's one of my shining stars because whenever she comes onto the group a lot just to be more hope and inspiration to other people. And her life is so happy and full of joy and light. And again, she's in her 70s. And so I look at that and that's one example. I've seen it many times. And I also myself, I mean, I'm not a spring chicken either. I'm approaching 50 as well, to say that there's no time frame, because I look at it that we all don't know how many years we have on this earth. But if I looked even in my own life to say, well, because I had those same thoughts, can I just stay? Can I just make this work? And I'll again, just like withstand this. But I was like, no, I deserve to have a happy and healthy life. And so do my children. And so no matter how many more years I have on earth, I deserve that. So I look at it that nothing is too late. It doesn't matter. The problem though there, Patricia, is that most, and I see this too on the other side, most people, especially if they're older or been in a relationship for a very long time, they just succumb to say, well, I've been in it this long and it's okay. And many do decide consciously to stay, and everyone has the right to make their own decisions. But sadly, they'll never then get to that other side of the healing and that peace and health in their life if you decide to say, because a lot of people will say, oh, we'll just live together and be roommates, like I won't deal with that person. And you're still in the environment, you're
Absolutely.
still there.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I don't judge anyone. Everyone makes their decisions for themselves. But for me, I can say this, and I say this to a lot of people, it's been about 7 years since leaving that long narcissistic relationship. And when I tell you, Patricia, I explain it that I have been to hell and back, and I am not exaggerating, but I would do it all over again in a heartbeat without any hesitation. Because even though there was a lot of pain and suffering, my children are so much happier and healthier that I would never trade that. It's priceless.
And in a weird sort of way, you came from it, you married it, but you got to the other side. So you see a much bigger picture than just a bad day or a bad year or a bad month. You see a whole change in your life. Deanna, what about the workplace? Many of us feel we have no recourse with a narcissistic boss or a coworker.
Yeah.
How do you teach people, or could you give us some tips of coping if it's easy for us to say you're not forced to be in the environment, but if that's your source of income, that's,
Yes.
there's a lot of reasons why people are forced to be in a situation.
Absolutely.
So speak to the kind of daily ins and outs of that, how you cope if you're forced to be in that situation.
Sure. It's a great question. And again, just speaking overall to say that, yes, unfortunately, narcissists are everywhere. It's not just, and I speak to that all the time in my group. It's not specifically for if it's your partner or a boyfriend or a girlfriend on an intimate level. It can be a parent, a sibling, a friend, a coworker, a coach, a teacher, a teammate, anyone.
Right.
But in the workplace, yes, it can get complicated because, like you said, this is your source of income and you have to go to work. You have to be in this environment. And I hear this all the time too, just very, toxic person, whether a boss, a coworker, you would treat it the same way you would with any narcissist in your life, in the sense that some of the tools are, there's a lot of specific words too. Gray rocking is one of the tools in coping. If you have to deal with a narcissist, where basically it's like you're not engaging, like you're there and you're kind of in the background, but like you're just not engaging in the behavior. So let's say if you have a coworker that you're on a project with and you have to deal with this person, well, you deal with the professional piece, but you don't engage in all of the drama and the antics and the hyping up, because basically that's fuel for the fire. That's what a narcissist is looking for. They're trying to rile you up, right? And get you all, frazzled and this, that, and they feed off of that response, that reaction. So when you don't give it, it doesn't give fuel. So the number one way to deal with a narcissist in any place, and in the workplace, is no contact. But again, that's not always possible. If you work with someone and you have a boss, I mean, I've been in this space several times with a narcissistic boss, where it's like, okay, well, if I just don't deal with that person, like just stay in my lane type of thing, that's one way, to kind of just keep them at bay. The other one, like I said, is if you do have to deal, is just really just don't engage in the manipulations, the antics. Obviously, you can try to have a conversation with them, but sadly, I always say you can't reason with an unreasonable person. You can, of course, for recourse, try to go, if it's a coworker, try to go to a boss and say, pointing out specifically the behaviors, because that's what I always speak to, Patricia. A narcissist can be anyone, but they're different people, they're different individuals, but it's behaviors and their tactics that are scripted, that are the same. So you could maybe go to your boss and say, it's hard, but leaving out the emotional piece and just from a very business-like standpoint, and say, okay, this person did X, Y, and Z, and you're highlighting the dysfunctional and the very unhealthy behavior, in the hopes that, of course, maybe your boss would take some recourse. But the narcissist himself is not going to change. And then the last resort, sadly, is if it's just not bearable, it's just not, it's making, I mean, I get this a lot from private clients that will come and say, this person is making my life hell at work and I don't know what to do. The last resort is, yeah, you leave, you find another job. I say that to people. People say, well, people often feel that they're stuck, like, oh, I'm stuck here because this is my job and this person. Well, you're never stuck in any situation. You might not like the option of having to look for a new job and find a new job, but that is another option. So if it's that bad and making your life that unhealthy, leaving and finding another job is an option.
And Deanna, we need to really, really work with people that when they leave, they don't go and find the same exact situation, right?
Exactly.
That's the thing that I think we really have to drive that point home, is if you're feeling abused and you're conscious of the fact that it's narcissistic or bullying, whatever. I think bullying and narcissism kind of fall in the same.
It's the same thing. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. A
And
narcissist is an adult bully. Yes.
and
Yes.
and they prey upon it. It's like you say, the magnetic
Yes.
dynamic that goes with that is to prevent that.
May I speak on that?
Sure, of
Yes.
course.
Yes.
Boy, I'm
Yeah.
breaking
I
it
didn't
up. Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, please.
Um, I do want to speak to that in the workplace and also in relationships. And this is where the healing part comes in. If you don't work on yourself to heal those broken pieces of whatever the relationship left behind, you will exactly attract that same job, that same person, that same type, right? And I get this a lot too. People say, like, I don't understand. I just keep attracting the same abusive men. They're packaged a little differently, right? From the outside, they look a little different, but the behaviors are the same. Same thing in a job, like, oh, now I got a new job, but oh, geez, now this boss is toxic in a different way. Well, that's because unless you do the work on yourself, you're going to literally continue attracting that same person, that same type of personality. So that's where I speak to people about really trying to concentrate and focus on your own healing. Because what happens, Patricia, you do some work on yourself and now you maybe released a lot of the limited beliefs, or you've released some of the trauma in your body, you've released some of the the reaction of abuse, all of these different things, how to manage your emotions, not getting triggered, all of those things. And now you attract something or someone different. And I see it all the time, and I've personally experienced it as well.
And do you find, so that was my next thing I was going to ask you. Are there this, do you have a couple of two, three, 4 points of what to look for?
Hmm.
Kind of a blanket, whether it's a relationship or you're going on a job interview. I don't have to tell you, all the signs are there the minute you step in the room, the minute you sit
Yes.
down at dinner on a date, the minute
Yes.
you are, I've seen it in, uh, I was running many years. I went to running groups. I knit. So I go to a knitting group. I go to the gym. I get bullied all the time in the gym by young men. It's astounding to lack of respect for,
Wow.
like, I'm old enough to be, some of them I'm probably old enough to be their grandmother. And
Right.
one of the young ladies behind the counter, I said, I was leaving and I said to her, do you know what that kid just did? I was going to get on a bench and he just jumped right in front of me and sat down. I said, I was walking over there. He goes, no, you weren't. It was empty. Don't be gaslighting me. Right. And she said, yeah, it's pervasive here. And I thought,
Wow.
what can I do different that somebody wouldn't do that to me? What
Hmm.
I say that a lot. And you're in the supermarket, you're
Yeah.
or wherever you are, it's pervasive. So what are the maybe a couple of things, the flags? I'm looking more for the flags.
Yeah. The red
Like, okay,
flags.
this person's doing something. You better pay attention to that.
Yes. Okay. So there are many red flags.
Yeah.
Yes, that I could speak a laundry list, but I do think two points I want to make there, Patricia. Like you're saying, like what can I do different? One, observe, really truly observe, because I think life is so busy in general that we often, when we meet someone or whether it's a new job, a new friend, a new person, we're not really paying attention. We're a close attention. So
Right.
when I say observe the behavior, okay, very closely. And in that situation at the gym, which is, yes, unbelievable. A lot of people in general, they don't have to be a narcissist, but have this sense of entitlement. Like this is, I have the right to this. I feel is hold someone accountable, because when you allow it and just say, oh, that was really rude and annoying, and you walk away, that person's going to keep doing it, right? So I like to believe that even if they whatever, they're going to be themselves, but I'm going to call them out on it. And I always say you can hold people accountable in a kind way. It doesn't mean you have to be combative or conflict, with conflict. Like in that situation, I would have been like, excuse me, right, like I was about to go there, I'm sorry, and or whatever it is, but like call that person out, because otherwise I feel like you just enable the behavior to continue on. And a narcissist does not like to be called out. They do not like to be held accountable for their bad behavior. But the more you call it out, again, at least it's like maybe they'll stop and think, who knows, or at least you're even pointing it out for other people, right? That it's not, this isn't okay. And I speak to that. So observe very closely. So let's say you're on a first date, right? You're going on a first date with someone and you're at a restaurant. This is like a telltale sign. How they treat the server is a
Right.
great sign.
Yeah.
If they're rude or if they're nice 1 minute and then they're like, you got this order wrong or whatever, it's like you see this like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, right? And so even in that situation, you could say, well, that they were really rude to the server, whatever it is. Now, again, you could write it off that anyone's having a bad day, but you pay attention to if you see that again, obviously how they treat their family members, their coworkers, like you pay attention to how they treat other people. Because if you're the one being love bombed, groomed as the new supply, the new victim, they're sweet as pie to you, right? So from your perspective, you're like, this person's amazing. This new boss is amazing, right? But then you see, and this happened in a work setting for me recently, where I had a boss who was so nice to me. I, signed on for a contract. And then I watched and saw her speak so derogatory and belittling to another staff member. And I was like, and that was immediate red flag.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so now I'm paying attention. I'm paying even closer attention. And then you start to see, typically if there's like a very drastic change of like from everything's fine to anger, that's a very big red flag. That shows you there's something inside that they, again, a lot of these things, but they don't have to necessarily be narcissistic. It is a diagnosed disorder, but that is a big sign. What else? They play the victim in every situation, Patricia. Everything is somebody else's fault. You can
Yeah.
see that in the workplace, right? Oh, I didn't get this project done, but it was because so and so didn't finish their part and I wasn't able to. They're always passing the buck. I call it the blame game. Okay. It's everybody else is the problem. never them. Well, that speaks to that they are not able to be accountable for their own actions. And that's where I looked at that's not healthy on across the board. Someone who makes a mistake or does something or doesn't do something, you own it, right? You say, you know what, you're right. I had a deadline and I didn't make it, whatever. They're not able to do that. What else? I speak to this a lot about like just the feeling and trusting your intuition and the feeling and energy of things. We all know you meet someone new in any a professional setting or a personal setting, and you're like, oh wow, like I instantly felt like I vibed with this person. Like I feel like I've known them forever. I really like them. I felt that way with you, Patricia, when we first
Yeah,
spoke,
yes,
right?
yes,
Right.
absolutely.
And that's an energy thing. And you're like, wow, like my intuition is telling me like this person's safe. Okay. The opposite of that, we've all been in situations where you meet someone and you're like, ooh,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but something here is not okay because that's your body actually responding to that. And you're like, something's not right here. I don't know what it is. This person's not my cup of tea. And I'm just going to tread lightly or be careful or whatever the case is. Those are the things that we need to trust when our body has a response our it's almost like visceral sometimes. Pay attention to those things. I tell my kids that like if you feel something like something doesn't feel right in any situation, there's a reason, so trust that. So that is really big. The other one is the walking on eggshells, and this is specific for narcissists because you hear this phrase a lot, like I'm walking on eggshells around them. It's because they're so volatile. Like one day they wake up and they're again loving and happy and everything's wonderful and you're the best thing, they put you on this pedestal, and literally like a flip of a switch they're angry and yelling at you and belittling you and treating you like a child, and you're like, whoa, what just happened? And that's the walking on eggshells thinking, because over time you think like, are they going to be in a good mood today, or what which version of them am I going to get? And it speaks to then your behavior because you're like, oh, if I say this, they're not going to like that. And then they're going to get mad. And so this is how they start to really control you, because you start to lose your voice because you think, oh, it's not worth the argument. I'm just going to stay quiet here. I'm not going to, because, oh, I know that's going to make him mad and I don't want to deal with that. And over time, that's where you lose who you are and you lose your voice for sure.
And Deanna, that is one of the things that, in my work where I talk about it's okay to be old and aging, we know that one's mental health and wellness plays a huge role in how well you're
Yes.
going to age and
Yes.
disease
Yes.
process. And I can't say that everything is caused by emotions, but they
No.
certainly don't make it better if it's not good.
Yes.
You've
Yes.
been facilitating a narcissistic abuse recovery support group, just one in
Yes.
Charlotte, North Carolina, where you are for the last
Yes.
3 years. Tell us, about, I know you alluded to it earlier.
Yes.
So tell us about the group and what you do. Yeah.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
Sure. So, the basis of it was that when I was in that space of leaving that abusive relationship and really needing support and needing help, I looked and I didn't find anything. And I thought to myself in my darkest time, thinking like there has to be some sort of support for this specifically, because I found that even though I'm very, very blessed to have a lot of family and friends that did support me during that time and continue to, they didn't understand the narcissistic piece. And I found myself very frustrated, always trying to explain what was actually happening. And I hate to say it, but unless you've been in this kind of relationship, it's really hard to understand. It's the kind of thing that unless you've experienced it yourself, you can't even believe it, because sadly the narcissism's behavior is very cruel, it's very evil, it makes you question all of humanity really. So most people will say, and I got this all the time, like, Deanna, that can't be, like, I think you might even be a little paranoid, like that can't be right. They questioned that someone could actually be, doing these kinds of things. So I squirreled that information away and I said, when I am in a better place, when I have healed to a point where I know that I can help other people, I am going to start a support group because I know there's a need for it. And that's exactly what I did. It took me a few years. And when I felt ready, I was like, I'm going to start this group. So I started it in person in Charlotte, in North Carolina, and doing like monthly meetings where each meeting had a topic specific to narcissism and its abuse. And my intention was always that people could walk away with tools or skills or something that they could use in their life. It wasn't like a venting session. I mean, of course, people did, of course, talk about their situations, but it was more from a place of power. Like, let's learn about this, let's educate ourselves, and then be able to empower ourselves to whether leave or help with the healing. And people were across the board as far as where they were in their journeys. So I ran that for a few years. I even started in another city in North Carolina, in Raleigh, for a little bit. And then at some point, I recognize if I go with the COVID time, I recognize if I can go virtual, then I can reach even more people. I can reach people anywhere in the country, in the world. So I started running the meetings virtually through Zoom. So it's either monthly, sometimes quarterly. It depends on what's going on. I'll have meetings where anyone can come to and ask questions, learn something. Again, not only leaving with more tools and skills, but it's also, I find, the power of community, where many times the feedback that I've gotten over the years, so many times, was, oh my goodness, like someone else understands
I'm
what
not
I'm
crazy.
going through.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not crazy. And the narcissist makes you truly believe that you are and that you're the problem. So when they come to this kind of a space, they're listening and they're like, oh my gosh, that happens in my world too. Oh, I thought it was just me. I thought it was just this person. And it starts to, like, light bulbs start going off. And I feel like I feel personally in the power of, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and share things, that empowers other people and inspires other people to do the same. And so oftentimes one person will be sharing something that's happening in their world, and it truly resonates with somebody else. And that is the power of the community. I've had people that offline would meet and, go for coffees, or like
Wow.
like basically, create their own support system, which is
Mhm.
wonderful. It's been nothing but a blessing. And honestly, Patricia, over the years, many people have, thanked me, and of course being like, thank you for holding the space. And my answer is always the same. I said, not only it comes from such a deep place in my heart to help, but it helps in my own healing as well. It's not just, oh yes, I'm doing this, it helps me as well. We're all in this together. And again, if you've been in this kind of situation, again, it takes years to recover and heal. So I look at it that we're all on the same page.
I love this. I find in talking to a lot of older adults who've been through whatever the trauma is,
Yes.
and then removing themselves from a bad relationship at an older age, they feel like a failure, right? We all,
Yes.
you could be 20, you could be 80. I
Yes.
failed. I failed in my
Yes.
relationship. I failed in my workplace. I failed as a parent, whatever it might be. And then they feel like the best days are behind them.
Yeah.
So what do you recommend is the best strategy to get the victims to take control? I know there's a very big picture and it's a long process.
Yes.
What's the first step? Is it a support group? Is it, once they've left that situation, what do I, because like we talked about earlier, Deanna, people lose their friends and they lose
Yes.
their family. Both
Yes.
physically, family passes away, but also your friends and family are gone because you've allowed this person to take over your entire life. What's the
Absolutely.
first step there?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. The narcissist is intentionally trying to isolate you
Yes.
from
Yeah.
your family and friends because they are your support
Yeah.
system. So, yes, I don't know if it's an order of first step, of course, it could be different for everyone, but yes, find like minded people that maybe have been in this. So, a support group is a great number one. Lean into your support system, whether they're still there or if it was, taken from you in that sense, lean back in. Support from family and friends and people who love you, who want to see you, heal and succeed is so, so important. And I speak to this a lot. I feel it's a mind, body, spirit approach, in the sense that you want to nurture your physical body, because again, a lot of that nervous system deregulation. You want to support your emotional, your mental, and your spiritual bodies as well. So it's not just one thing. There are 1,000 different things that you can do to help support those, but in the end, it's taking back your power. It's saying to to this person, whether out loud or not, like, you don't control me anymore, you don't own me. So it's a journey. I speak of journey of rediscovering self. And if you can look at it that way, it's actually very beautiful, because you're learning to come back to you. You're learning to trust yourself again, your intuition, right? Again, you're made to believe that you're the problem. You've learned to question your own reality, your own decision making. So it's a journey of coming back to you. you're remembering who you were before this relationship. And there's many different rituals and tools and modalities and things that you can do. But like at a very general level, it's that leaning into support for help, not only support of family and friends, practitioners, right? Professionals, that holistic people that can help you. Again, I speak, Reiki is one of the best things that has ever happened to me personally and professionally because it helps release trauma from the body. We hold our emotions, it's in our bodies, in our tissues. So, energy work, self care, massage, acupuncture, yoga, exercise, taking care of yourself, loving on yourself again. You've been so beaten down that you don't even know the person you are, and you don't even love that person anymore. I looked in the mirror years ago and I didn't even recognize who I was anymore. So if you are very intentional about like, I want to take my power back and I want to get back to me, the sky is the limit in how you do that. But yes, taking care of yourself, rediscovering who you are, taking back your voice, your power, listening to your intuition, and really approaching it from that space of a mind, body, spirit. If that answers the question.
It does. This has been amazing. And in closing, Deanna, I want to ask you, what do you like about getting older?
I love that question. Even when you had talked that you were going to ask that, I was like, wow, that's a good one. And so luckily I did think about it a little bit before now. Um, Actually, what the biggest thing that I love about getting older is the wisdom that I have been acquiring in all of my life experiences that have happened, the good, the bad, the ugly. Everything is a learning experience. And I preach this to my children as well. If you can take something away, something that you've learned from an experience, whether it was good or bad, that's what I want to take. And I joke and I say it all the time now, Patricia, that I wish, yes, would I like to be 20 years old again?
Yeah,
Absolutely. But I would want to be 20 years old again physically, but with the wisdom and knowledge that I have now, because to me, that is priceless. I love the
absolutely.
wisdom that I've acquired.
And like you said, you never get it without the life experiences that you've had.
That's the way it works. Exactly.
Deanna Scaldaferri, thank you so much for joining me for such an important topic and such an informative half an hour, 40 minutes we've had together. And for more information and to get to know Deanna Scaldaferri, go to healinghandsbydeanna.com, and we'll also post that up on the page when it shows. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Patricia. It's been a wonderful time and a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us here at It's Okay to Be Old. And for more information about me and the show, you can reach out at www.patriciagreenberg.com. Thanks again, and stay well and stay safe.